Good morning. Let me know if you guys can hear this. I'm trying to make this patch this thing together. So basically, Facebook is kind of taking away my ability to stream the way I used to. That's just a policy change that they came with. And so if you guys can see this, please let me know. And we're broadcasting live on YouTube as well as the into the group. And so we're going to talk about Measure 114, what's happening there. I'll let you guys kind of hop on and hopefully it okay. I'm still trying to figure this out. So stand by 1 second. And it looks like we're live. So if you guys can see this or hear this, please let me know. You guys can comment and that kind of helps get the message out. And so we're going to talk about something that is, just in the beginning stages. And so it's really, really important as we stay up to date on what's happening so we can be a part of this process. And so if you guys can see this, please let me know. And I look forward to kind of get back in the swing of things and kind of talking about, Measure 114 and what it looks like. Looks like we have one person comments. Let's see what we got here. Thank you. I appreciate you. And so let's talk about, what's happening. And so it looks like, okay, we got comments. Perfect. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And so, here's where we're at. I'm kind of just going through I call it Measure 114 2.0. It's a little bit different than the first version that's tied up in court right now. And so what they're trying to do here is they're trying to do an end around of the judicial process and nullify, everything that happened with Measure 114 in court, in state court. And, something that's really kind of troubling to me is the fact that if we're going to challenge this monstrosity of a bill, right, we have to do it in their courts. And so what's really important to note is the courts associated with Marion County, that's where the Oregon legislature is, they fund those courts. And so there could be pet projects that the court wants to implement, and I'm saying justice is blind, but I'm kind of cynical at this point. And so what I mean by that is, the legislature controls the purse strings, and that's what directs funding where out throughout the state. And so what happens here is if we have to challenge this in their backyard, in their courts, that takes away and nullifies the voice in Eastern Oregon, which gave us those victories in state court, and puts us in a place where we're going to have judges that are not going to align with our values. We're going to have judges that I wouldn't say handpicked, but there's some influence there. And definitely the rulings that we got out of Harney County are not going to be the way what's going to happen here in Marion County. And so that's just something to be aware of there. Okay. So as I'm going through this, I'm looking, I read Measure 114, so many different times, and I spent a lot of time studying it and, understanding what the good parts of the bill, and I say good parts, like the parts that I don't have to worry about. There's really no good parts about Measure 114. And especially when it talks about having a permit to purchase, my magazine capacity, that's a huge thing for me. I'm not going to give up that. And that's like a no-go for me. And I'm looking at this, and it looks like in the original Measure 114, there was no carve-outs for law enforcement. Okay. And so in this situation, there's carve-outs for law enforcement, it looks like. And I just did a real brief reading of this new bill, and this House Bill 3075. Okay. So that is the new Measure 114 2.0. That's what I'm going to call it. And so, that's where, it's basically copy and paste with some additions to the original Measure 114. One thing I didn't like is the fact that they backdated our magazines to December 8th of 2022. So basically, we've had a stay. Actually, we've had a permanent injunction for 2 years now. And so I don't know about you, but I went out and bought magazines because I had to stay. It was legal for me to do so. And now with this new monstrosity 2.0 is these magazines have to be backdated to December 8th of 2022. So that's a kind of a dirty hand move there. So basically we thought we're all good because we started out as a stay, it turned to a temporary injunction, then it turned to a permanent injunction. And so now it's going through the process. And now, we went and bought magazines thinking that we're good to go for the time being. Now everything's going to be backdated to December 8th. Okay. So technically, if this thing does go into effect, we could be in violation there because we bought magazines after December 8th of 2022. So just something for you to salivate on and marinate on. And still in there, there's the talk about the detachable magazine base plates. That's still in here. So that means every magazine in the state of Oregon is going to be potentially illegal if this goes into effect. And so that's a big no-go for me, because people that are under good faith thinking that they're being compliant, and let's say they bought a Glock 43, for example, that holds 7+1, thinking they're being compliant since it has a detachable removable base plate. That magazine is illegal. They are not in compliant with measure 114 2.0. So something to think about there. So in reality, there's very few magazines that have, maybe 1911s would be, one that has a stamped floor plate. And so that's something to think about. Okay. There is some, and I need to spend a little bit more time reading this, to really understand, because everything is so, it cites itself. Some of it's contradictory. I'm seeing this, and I don't want you guys to take this as gospel yet, but it looks like there's carve outs for break action shotguns, revolvers. So it's almost like they're trying to give us some compromise here and make it look like they're not totally insane with this new bill. I'm not buying it. And obviously they raised all the fees. So in the original measure 140, it's because they can't afford it, because they knew that when they put out measure 114 in its true form, $65 was not going to cover all the stuff that they're trying to do. Okay. And so what this is doing is basically raise the fee to up to $150 to get a permit to purchase. Okay. So the way this is going to work, you're going to have to go to a certified law enforcement certified instructor. Okay. To take the class. We don't know what the class looks like yet. And we know some of the verbiage, but it hasn't been fully developed yet. Once you get your little certificate of completion, then you would have to take to a permitting agent. Okay. A permitting agent is probably the chief law enforcement of that county. So it could fall back on the county sheriffs, especially for those of us that are living in rural counties. You're going to have to go to the city. You're going to have to go to that county to be issued your permit to purchase. Okay. Once you get your permit to purchase, then you would be allowed to go exercise your right to keep and bear arms. Okay. So what we're going to do there is now you've gone through one background check. Okay. Now you're going to go into there. You're going to fill out the 4473 form, and then you're going to present your permit to purchase card there. And then you're going to have to go through another background check. Okay. So you're going to be subjected to 2 background checks just to buy your first firearm. Okay. And so I don't know about you, a right delay is a right denied. Okay. So if it takes me, let's say X amount of days to get through this process. And also let's look at socioeconomics, right? Like, what if I'm lower income? Let's say I'm a single mother and I'm trying to get my gun for personal protection because I'm living in, Portland, which is probably one of the most dangerous cities in definitely in the state, if not on the West Coast. Now I'm being prevented because I don't have my permit to purchase to go get a gun to be able to protect myself and my family. Okay. The cost is going to be prohibitive for people. And another issue is the renewal. The renewal is 100 up to 110, and so that's something where you have to be mindful there of, this is just it's a money grab for them. It's a way to restrict our ability to carry to buy a gun. It's, and it does nothing to actually, it makes all of us criminals or potentially criminals, so that's something that, and so I always found that really kind of frustrating, is because we're not the ones committing these crimes. We're not the ones, we just want to be left alone. Okay. And so the way I'm going to get into that, Derek, in just a moment. So bear with me. And so let me kind of get my words out, and then we'll kind of talk about what the process looks like and how this is going to go and how we can get involved. And I will say there's a few bills that did give me hope, and I put them in there. I'll probably give them more credit as we kind of start this process. And one of them was introduced by Virgil Osborne. I believe he's still in the group. He's actually he's a rep. He's out of Roseburg, and so he presented a bill, and I believe David Brock Smith was part of it as well. There's a couple different bills which give me hope, and part of that would say, it says in that bill that if we have a concealed handgun license, that constitutes our permit to purchase. Okay, so while I don't want a permit to purchase, I'm hard no on that. There's a couple bills in there that actually support our right to keep and bear arms. So I'm going to make sure that I don't want a new bill, but if I'm going to double down and focus on a bill, it's going to be a way that it's going to be an offensive bill. Like it's something that's going to help preserve our liberties. And so that gives me hope. So I'll talk about that further as I have more information. I'll try to get hold of Virgil and see what I can do to kind of understand and see how we can support him. Right. And so, a couple things just we want to be aware of is this is a bad bill. I mean, it's 34 pages. A lot of it is copy and pasted from the original text. They didn't even change the dates when it comes to Measure 114 and implementation. So it's just a regurgitated version that has some carve outs for law enforcement. Also, it raises the price because they understand they did bring in the FBI into this. Okay, so that's where they did get smart, because they did get in the original Measure 114, they did get hammered by the FBI because the FBI was not going to perform the background checks for Measure 114 as it was written, because Measure 114, the way it was written originally, did not meet their requirements for them to perform the background checks. And that was stated in the bill that the FBI was going to, and OSP were supposed to handle these background checks. So, that looks like they cleared that up. So what they're trying to do is prevent a legal challenge there. They did carve out some civil liabilities for law enforcement agencies. Okay. So let's paint a picture here. So civil liability for law enforcement agencies. So the state of Oregon, through this bill here, this is House Bill 375, has created a process that law enforcement is supposed to develop the training program. Okay. And what they're going to do is they're going to task instructors with implementing the training program. And what they did is they cut out their little liability. So there's no way, if that instructor, right, does something that they should not do, so there's no civil liability for the state. Okay. So, it's basically they're doing everything they can to prevent them from having any civil liability. And we look about it, if we're not able to buy a gun within a timely manner, there should be civil liability for that, because our rights are being denied. And so that's an issue I have with this bill is there's no, I haven't got to due process yet. I don't know if there's due process rights in here. I would think there would be some due process, like if somebody was delayed or denied. I get guys message from people all the time that have been in a delayed status since 2022. Okay. So it's been going on almost 3 years now that they have not been able to buy a firearm legally because of the way the system is already structured and the way it's being implemented. Oregon State Police, they continue to change how they intervene and how they interpret, rules and regulations. Okay, so now the guys that and the poor guys that have gone through the hoops to have their rights restored the legal way, they've gone through the attorney, they've done the process, they've gone in front of the judge, they've done all of this, and they've satisfied their debt to society, and they deserve that second opportunity. And now Oregon State Police is choosing to just deny their ability to buy a new firearm. And so that's something that we have to be aware of. I mean, we're all in this together. And so it's a mess. It's a complete mess, and I want to talk about it. And let's talk about what the process looks like. So the Oregon legislature has not started yet. So these are what's called a pre-session filing. Okay, so these are basically this was sponsored by Representative Crop. I'm not sure where he's at. I'm going to do some background investigation on him to find out who he is and what this is about. And so what that does is our senators and our representatives, they have a certain amount of bills that they like, and they can get them pre-filed. Okay. So these are all the bills that are pre-filed. The ones that we have a list of now are the ones that are already pre-filed. The ones, the bad ones, I guarantee the bad ones have not been filed yet. Okay. The bad ones are not going to be filed because they don't want us to be doing the videos like we're doing now. They don't want us to do any investigations on them. They want to be able to just ram them through, and that's what's going to happen. And so just be aware of that. So these are all the bills that we are seeing right now are the ones we can't comment on yet. All we can do is sign up for email alerts. So I do recommend is you go to House Bill 3075. I'll put a link into it here, and go to the email alerts, sign up for the email updates. So every time this bill moves or gets scheduled for a hearing, you're going to get an email. That way we can get involved. Okay. So once it's going to have the way it's going to work is the legislature will come into session. All of the bills will get scheduled for a first reading. Okay. So the first reading is basically, it's a formality. They go through the bill, they read it on the floor, and this is going to start off on the House. Okay. So the way this is going to work is this would go through the House, and then if it passes the House, then it would go over to the Senate. Okay. And the Senate would do the same thing within reason. Okay. And so what typically with this is dealing with law. So this would probably go to the House Judiciary Committee first, or it could go to Ways and Means because there is going to be a financial impact to the state. So those are probably the two most likely committees that this would go to first before it goes through the process. And so, once it's in those committee meetings, that's where we're going to have to kind of target those members. And so we'll know who's on the committee. Then we can email them directly if we're living in their district. That has a little bit more power for us because we can email them directly, say, hey, I'm one of your constituents. I do not agree with this, and this is why. And so, once it's in this process, there's going to be if depending on how hot the trot they are, and if they're going to ram this thing through, because they have a super majority. There's no way we can stop this at this point. Okay, in a worst case scenario, they could literally slam dunk this on this, and there's nothing we can do. And so the only thing that we can do is get loud, and we can show up in their go make appointments and go into their office and talk to them as professionals, right? And or we can go to the House floor and up there in the balcony like we did before, and make our presence known. What we can do is find good representatives and good senators that are on our side that support our ability to keep and bear arms, and we can see what we can do to help them. So we can build alliances up there in Salem, and obviously we got to be respectful, and we got to be firm, but we also want to be kind because we don't want our message to be lost. Okay. So it's going to go through that process. One thing we have to be concerned about is this is a long session. And so this session is going to go from, I believe, January 20th all the way to the 1st of July. And so we have a lot of time for this thing to maneuver. And another thing that's troubling is this is considered an emergency act. So it could go into effect. It looks like here they have stages, but literally, if this thing is passed both chambers, it could go to the governor. She could sign it. It would become law. Some of it wouldn't be implemented yet because they still have to put things in place, but it is an emergency clause, and that's troubling. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm trying to make it as easy as I can for you guys. I'm going to go through your questions. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments and we'll talk about them. So Ian, right? Ian, so your question, I would imagine, so I have a representative that sponsored this. I would imagine this is the other side's bill. They've just kind of just modified it a little bit. And so that's troubling because it was a bad bill from the beginning, and now we're doubling down. Another thing I'd be kind of curious about is what happens to all that those millions of dollars that we spent in defense, right? So our side is defending our ability, and we're doing a great job with Tony Aiello. But the other side, the state of Oregon has used $5 million of your taxpayer-funded resources to basically restrict your ability to carry a gun or buy a gun. And now where's that money go? So we're just taking that $5 million and lighting it on fire. That's maddening. Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And so one thing about in the original Measure 114, there was an affirmative defense. Okay, I haven't found the verbiage in here for affirmative defense yet because I just did a brief overview of it. And so the affirmative defense would be I have to prove that I was in possession of this magazine before December 8th, 2022. And so, that's the problem with backdating because now I have to prove it. So now I have to have a receipt before December 8th of 2022 that I was in possession of this magazine. So that is a violation of my Fifth Amendment right. Okay. The self-incrimination. Also, unlawful search and seizure, my Fourth Amendment right as well. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. I just play one here on Facebook for you guys. But there's things that they don't smell right for me. So, well, and Joel, so your question here, I love your question or your comment, excuse me, is a lot of our sheriffs don't have the manpower or the resources or the staffing. So how are we going to task our sheriff's departments that are limited on resources and funding? And so where's this funding? Are we going to create new funding for this bill for enforcement and implementation? That's another thing. Where's the money? And so, yeah, Paul, 100%. There's nothing because it's written by idiots. It's literally written by idiots. And now we have a regurgitated version that is not better. They didn't help the problem. They didn't make the problem worse because now they've added more complexity because now they're tasking the FBI with getting involved and performing the background checks. But there's also a way for certain parts of our society to have carve outs and get special treatment there. So it's a mess. It really is. And so, I hope that this all makes sense with you guys and you guys can get involved and you can be a part of this. Because it's really, really important. I just think that now is the time to get involved. Good morning, Sean. Thank you for tuning in. This comment right here. Let's see here. I guess we are forced to become criminals. And I see the frustration. I feel it, and I empathize because all we want to do is be left alone. Okay, we're not the ones committing these crimes. We're doing everything that we can to be law abiding until we can no longer be law abiding. And that's where we're at right now. Is we can know. So now we've got to shift from being law abiding because there's just so many laws that there's going to be one that we're going to be violating. So we have to be responsible. And ultimately it's my responsibility to protect myself. Okay. It's your responsibility to protect yourself. And this is not legal advice, but this is reality. When there's so many laws that it's impossible for me to be law abiding, I have to be responsible. And so that's where we have to be aware of what's happening and how this can be used against us. It's not a good thing. I will keep you up to date when this thing goes. I'm going to get off here because I have another meeting in just a few. But I just want to kind of give you this update, and we can kind of go from there. And so when I'm reading this bill, I'll put the text in here, okay? And you'll see there's a couple different things, okay? So you'll see there's a key on the bottom of the first page. The bold print is an amended section to the bill, okay? If it's in bold and italic, it's, they're cutting out parts of the bill, and so everything else is going to be a new part of Measure 114 2.0 is going to be in bold, okay? And so that means it's already been amended from either Oregon revised statute, or it's going to be changed in the original text of Measure 114. And so just be aware of there. So just if you're looking at things at this bill today and you're just kind of stewing on it, which I totally get, is make sure you note the bold, because that's going to be the newest language that they're trying to ram through. Hey, Paul, yeah, I'll see you next week. And so that, just something to be aware of there. So, the stuff that's either there's going to be Oregon revised statute that's already noted in here. If it's in bracketed in italics, that's something that they're amending the section. If it's bold faced, it's going to be the newest verbiage for Measure 114 2.0. So, just something to think about. There's going to be other bills. We need to be ready. We need to be, sign up for their email update for that House Bill 3075. Also, make sure you're ready to write testimony or write emails to your senators. This is going to start in the House, so it's going to be your representative. And so what I'll do, as soon as I have the updated list for our representatives and our senators, I'll put it in the pinned comments up there at the top, the resource section. So we'll be able to just click on a rep, go directly to their email. And so when we're sending emails, this is really, really important. We're sending emails to our senators or our representatives, okay? Make sure in the title of your email, okay, let's say we're going to use House Bill 3075 as an example. So, but in the title of your email, House Bill 3075, okay? From there, you can go ahead and enter, obviously be very, very respectful, okay? Because what's going to happen is when you send this email goes to a staffer. The staffer is the original gatekeeper, okay? So typically they're going to be either interns or people that are in college or getting out of college, okay? So be very, very respectful, because if we come loaded for bear at that initial meeting, your email is just going to get deleted. Okay. So you got to be really, really calm, cool, collected, very professional, and just kind of laying it with, and just say, hey, let's say Senator Prozansky, that's my Senator Prozansky, and just kind of lay out your facts and go from there. And just make sure that you're very respectful, because if you're not respectful, you're just wasting your time. Okay. So right now we need conversions. And so conversion means we need responses from our senators or representatives. We need phone calls from our representatives or senators. We also need them to listen, right? So we need conversions. And so we do that by making sure that we're very respectful when we're reaching out. I know it's tough. I totally get it. Like my blood gets pumping when I start talking about this stuff. And it's hard to keep my composure sometimes, but I gotta check out for a minute and make sure that I put the information out in a way that's going to be well received. Really, really important. Okay. Next step from there is going to be writing and submitting testimony. So we'll be able to submit written testimony, which I'm hoping that we just smoke the other side on that. Okay. So that means everybody should be writing testimony in opposition of this. And maybe we'll come up with some good talking points that we can vote on right here in the group. Like these are where we should focus on. Like these are the 3 or 4 bullet points that we should hit in our testimony where everybody sounds the same, right? We're not robots, but we talk about, the funding that was already spent, all these different things. And that's how we submit that as written testimony. And there's also probably, if this thing goes to a public hearing, there'll be a way for us to testify either in person or online via Zoom. So lots of different things coming up, and we just got to be part of the process. If we do not get part of the process, all the wins that we've had go out the window if this thing's passed. Okay. I can't stress that enough. All the victories that we got out of Harney County the past couple of years are in vain if we do not stop this bill. So no pressure. So just something to be aware of. It's still early. The sky is not falling, but it's time to clock in. So that's where I'm at. So if you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. Tell your friends. Okay. Tell your friends that it's time to get ready, get rallied up, because we need their help. We like what we, so, and I'll leave you with this. I will leave you with this fact. Okay. We did amazing things in November when we all showed up. Okay. We all showed up because we knew what was on the line. We knew what was at stake, and we had more conservative turnout than we've had probably in 20 years. Okay. And so we have to keep, and we made progress. Okay. We did some great things, made some moves, and we have to keep up that same energy when it comes into the Oregon legislature this session. So, that's where I would say is be prepared to do your part. Because we all have to be part of this. Okay. We fail and we lose when we don't get involved. Okay. And it's not my job. It's not your job. It's our job. Okay. It's our job to stop this stuff. Okay. And we can do it. Okay. But we gotta put in the time and the energy and the effort. And I know it's tough. And the last thing we want to do is we work a full day and then send an email to our senator rep. I totally get it. And I understand it, but it's something that we have to do if we're going to stop this stuff. And I'm off my soapbox. I'm done lecturing. And one second, Sean. Absolutely, Sean. So this is a proposed bill. Okay. So nothing would go into effect until it goes through the entire process. Okay. So, obviously we do have a couple active lawsuits that we should be funding. But my only issue here with this bill is if outside companies get word of this, they're going to restrict shipping guns that hold more than 10 rounds into Oregon. They're also going to restrict our standard capacity magazines, like some companies have already done. So your best bet is to support local companies that are in the state of Oregon, that are your neighbors, and hopefully they're doing their part. Okay. And I'm talking to you, local FFLs, is you got to be sounding the alarms. Okay. So use your platforms. Okay. If you have a platform, you have a gun store, if you have any way to educate your neighbors or your circle of people, Okay. Now is the time to use those platforms. Okay. So we could be sharing memes. We could be doing videos. We could be referring people to other people. Like if you bring them to the group, if you need education and resources, okay, we have them here. But now is the time to not be silent. Okay. Because you guys barely made it through 2024 because sales are way down. So now is not the time to be silent when it comes to Measure 114 2.0. Okay. This is your, I mean, your responsibility as an FFL is to educate the public and your customers. So make sure they know that this is a thing and this thing could potentially go into effect. And if it goes into effect, there's no telling, whether or not we're going to be able to survive, because I don't know how long it's going to take to implement. I mean, that's the whole thing. So yeah, so Bob, it's going to be in Marion County, which is just out. It's Salem is basically Marion County. Okay, so that's where all of the challenges would have to be. Okay. And so what that does is, so remember those attorneys that had to go all the way over to Harney County. So they had to drive over there. These attorneys that are making $1,000 an hour, right? Is now they only have a short drive. They have a short commute to Salem if we're going to challenge this. Absolutely, Cliff. Where one goes, we all go, right? So we're either going to win or we're going to lose together. So I don't want to lose. I'm sick of losing. And we've had a good run. I mean, we've got some big victories in the past couple years, and luckily we're able to hold this thing off. But the way this is set up, it's not set up for us to win, and so we're gonna have to work that much harder. And I know we want to work, and so just talk about it, okay? The legislature starts next week, and sign up for the email alerts. Make sure you're part of it, and stay tuned for updates. If you guys have any questions, I'm always available. So send me a message, tell your friends about the group, have them be a part of the group, and together we can stop this stuff. FFLs, educate your customers. Instructors, educate your customers. Let them know what's happening. Okay. It's got to be a full court blitz on this to make sure that people say, oh, I didn't know that was happening. Like, I didn't know I had to vote in 2022 to prevent this from going into effect. Okay. So please, please, please get involved. So other than that, I'm done lecturing. I got another meeting, but thank you guys for tuning in. It's glad to speak with you. And I appreciate you guys, trusting me with the information, and let's do something with it. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Have a great day.